Hello everybody. In this video I want to focus on the likes functionality. So far we have the layout done. You can see we can actually pull up information. We have the pagination working and making the corresponding calls and get those backgrounds loaded too. So far so good. Now I want to keep track or custom likes in here. And there are several places that we can actually do that or save that. The purpose of this video is to have actually different places for every functionality. So for the likes, I would like to create a custom API. Let's create an Express API. Let's deploy it somehow and let's verify that we can actually expose those likes through there. And let's see if it's actually working the way that it's supposed to, right? So the first things that we need to do, and I want to show you something over here, is we will not start from scratch. I will give you a template that I already had done, and it's called the Node Server Express template. The same way that we have the Vue 3 starter template, I have the Node Server Express template. And these have everything up ready to have an API with the routes and everything, just missing the database connection per se, right? So on top of this, we are going to create the likes application. So let's actually do like server. Let's make it public. Okay, we use a template and we can actually clone it. So let's copy this. Let me close my Vue server for now. I don't need it. Let me go back to my projects and do git clone the new server. We go to the like servers and we do npm install. Perfect. And we open those on Visual Studio Code. So what I had here already, I have my bubble configure, right? I have the routes there, the API routes. For the index, just the API endpoint pretty much, and the other one to say is inside the root path, right? It's nothing expensive. We have the EMB example. This is the information that we need to change. So we have the logger already created. So we have the logger over here. We handle the errors, the .env, and the basic authentication with using username and password. And those are going to be verified through queries, I believe. So we have a really basic information. So the first thing that we need to do, or env, we need to duplicate this file. And I have a duplicate function, I believe, somewhere here. Or not. Let's actually copy this, so let's paste it right here. Let's get it outside. Helpers, let's put it outside. Oh, getting troublesome. Let me just delete it. Yeah. And then we actually do the long duplicate action. There's a duplicate action here. I don't know why Visual Studio Code doesn't have this by default. Oh, if I install that, it will allow me just to right click here, duplicate, and call it .env. Now let's rename it. Use .env. And that's not going to be tracked by default. And let's put it here. We are in development. Like server API. Let's use for now the port 3000. Morgan level log is going to be development. Oops. Origin, let's keep everybody for now. Database type is SQLite 3. Database file is db.sqlite. Let's use that one for default. You can use any type of database that you want, and let's put a hello there as my username and password. Okay, that should be enough for this section. The next thing that we need to do is let's actually run the server. Let's try to run it. Let's do npm run that. We have an issue here. What is the issue? Oh, the issue is because I closed my view app and I had this in the 3000. It tried to go the right way. So let's actually use Insomnia. And let's verify that we have everything. Yeah, the API endpoint is there. And what I want to do is I want to create MPI likes, and that will bring all the information that we need to add it. As you can see, I already have some elements because that was the test phase that I did. I want to create something like this one, and then I want to get a count, like how many. The functionality that I'm thinking, envision here is a simple table. That table will have an object ID and a username ID. That way, every time that we do a like, we save the username to what it did a like, right? It's as simple as that. And the count is just counting for a specific object, right? An ID object will give you how many likes does it have. And that's it. And how many likes a specific user had done to the application. I don't know how to create a like. Is you send that like object ID and user ID element, like that's it. And how to remove a like is just the delete endpoint, like simple stuff. For purpose of this video, probably will be put some of those endpoints there. We are not going to get all of them working in the application, but it's just to get started. So the one that we're going to create is the get like and the count. Pretty much, it's the only two that we're going to be using in the app for now. Okay, so for now we saw the API is up and running and is doing what it's supposed to. Okay, so the first things that we need to do now that we have this, let's get back to our node server. So the first things that we need to create is, well, let me just show you something extra. In my package.json, we can see that SQLite 3 is already there, and that next is already there. So our databases drivers somehow is already created in this server. So let's just create a new helper. Let's call this database. And the database will be really simple. You need to import next from next, right? Okay, yeah, we declare but never use it. And we just need to create a database instance that's going to be our next object. If you still have questions how this actually works, you should see the other video that we have for how to create a node.js API. We have this pretty much this code. So we need to specify the client. We need to specify the connection, right? And the connection in this case is going to be an object, and it's going to be the file name, right? And we need to specify option use null as default as true. So this is going to be our connection, and the way the connection should work is with the process.env dot database type. And the connection, the file name will be process.env.db file. So after we have that, let me just copy the rest. It's really simple. And the only things that we're doing here is verify the tables, and we check if the likes table exists. If it has it, if it's not there, it will create it. If not, we just keep it there. And in there, we just have an automatic ID that's going to be the primary and auto increment. And we will save the object ID, user ID, and timestamp just to have time. I like to have timestamp in my tables. But in reality, I'm keeping the most simplest way possible to have it. Okay. Now, so we have that, we actually need to have a service that will consume our database object. So we need to go to our source. We create a new file, and we don't have the service folder yet, so we need to create it. Services. And inside that, let's call the like service. Here we need to have some kind of validation, and we're going to be using Joy the same way that we used it before. And we need to import the logger and the database just to have those right there. Because we're using Joy for validation, like the Joy schema, the like schema should require to have the object ID and the user ID. We need to bring those. If we don't put it there, we will not proceed to continue. So for that, actually let's just do the get all element, and that will be really simple. The get all one, what it's going to be doing is it's going to go to the database, do a selection of likes, getting all the likes, and will return that selection. That's pretty much what we're doing here. And we can actually do something like this too. Probably will not use it, but get by object ID, how many likes a specific object ID has. And this one will be something like get by user ID, right? We can see that we have those where object there. We can continue having that kind of functionality at the end for what I want to do. Well, I will put it there. So if you want to implement it later, that's going to be fine. But we are not going to use all of them right now. So one of the points I want to use is the count. And the count will be a simple select from my database likes. Because I'm counting by object ID, I select where that object ID is that, and I will count the object ID and will save it the table or the column name as count for now. And just give it the first element. That way it's going to give me an object instead of an array. That's pretty much it. The next one, we can do the same as we wanted for the user ID, like how many likes a specific user has, and then we can go, well, give me all the likes for a specific, all the person who likes a specific ID. We can actually do that, and we can actually do this is a simple where ID is equal ID, give it the first element, and this is the traditional adding one. So for the adding, we need to send the like object, right? This is with the set like, and this is be there, and we need to verify that it passed or like validation, like schema validation. If there is an error, we just return there was an error and we cannot proceed. If it's not an error, we just say, you know what, we're going to insert or like and create it and updated that with the new local string, pretty much. After that, we just get the like and we're waiting to get the first element and we just proceed. And that's it. Pretty much. Remember that an insert will give us an object ID. That's why we're getting that ID and we're returning that object that we just created in the database. So that then If you're a little confused, go back to the other video where I have when we actually did that for the application. Let me add another two elements here. How to remove an object by ID. This is table ID, and remove by like. So remove by like is saying, you know what, that when that object with that specific person, delete it. It's pretty much what we're doing, right? So we have a bunch of queries that we can actually use in our application that will allow us to have everything up and running. Now that we have that, we should be able to create, or inside our API route, create our likes route. For that, we're going to import the router, right? We're going to import the like services from our services like, pretty much. And we're going to import our authorization from the helper's authorization, where we have the passport already created. And we will need just to create the router element and use that router to use the basic out. That means that all the routes that we will specify here is going to be protected with that local authentication. For that, let me just copy all this and paste it here. So we're going to get, we go to the API likes, we should get to the like service get all. If we're posting something, we're going to save it as a new like, and we're from the body, right? And we are sending that through the like services, pretty much. If there is an error, we just return 400 and we just send that like. If there is no like this is nothing from here, we just send that bad status error through here. This is the interesting one. So I need to be really specific in my resources. So if I want to count through object, I send the object ID later, or if I want to count by user, I send the user ID later. The way that we cannot use like one for both is because we need to specify a different way to handle it. Sorry. Probably a different way would be to have like a parameters that we can actually put parameters and put those on there, but because we didn't went that deep in the node.js server, I didn't want to touch them right now. So we just created an account object with the object ID, account user ID, to get the count how many likes that particular person has, right? And then the simple delete option, right? And that will get delete a specific like from that object and user. Doesn't matter, they say I don't know what is the ID of the like, well, but I know which object is and which user is, I will remove it. That's pretty much it. So after we have that, we should be able to go to, in our main likes application, we just need to import those from right here. And after we import, we just need to use them just before exporting the router. And with that, I believe we are pretty much done in our application. As you can see, we didn't modify that much. Let's verify that everything's running. Okay, crash it. Let me restart it, let me run it again. We have an issue with the router use. In where? Interesting. Delivery router. Let me see if this actually came from somebody. Okay, let me stop the video for a minute. Give me a second. Okay, I found the issue. The issue was that my API endpoint for likes, it was not saved. So you save this file and everything is running the way they're supposed to. So now let's go to Insomnia. And let me just call my likes endpoint. You will see that doesn't return anything. Let me create a like and let me just put a fake object ID of 1, fake user ID of 1. Perfect. Let's create that user 2 did like to the same object. And user 3 also like that object. Right? We have 3. If we go to count by object ID and we call it, we see that the object ID has 3 likes. We have another object, we have 0 likes, it doesn't exist. Let's create object 2 person 1 is there. So when we call the count for the object 2 that we just created, it should have 1 like in there. Perfect, so we have pretty much what we needed. If we get all the likes, we can see that all the objects are actually saved there. We have 3 for object 1 and 1 for object 2, and user 1 did 2 different likes. So we have a really basic API working with query the username and password, basic authentication. So that will allow us to continue doing our work. So I will keep this running. I will not close it. The only things I will do, I will open a new shell. Let me go to my projects folder and let me go to my movies database and let me just do npm run that. Now, because I have my server running in port 3000, my view application now is running in 3001. This is important. I need to have both of them running in order to use them the way that we need it. So now that we have those two in there, let's get back to see our app, and our app is going to be now in port 3001. Let's say it. Let's log in. And there you go. We have the application work. So let's start attaching those likes in there. For that, I have this open right here. And something that I forgot to mention in the last video, I just commit everything from the last video, so it's already there. Okay, so let's go to source, let's go to helpers, and let's create a new one called use likes JavaScript file. In this use likes, we just need, it's going to be really simple. We already have Axios installed. So the only two elements that we need to create is we need to create import Axios. And in our Axios, what we want to do is to create the instance, right? And let's call that instance API. I will actually call it likes, right? So on the likes we're going to create, it's going to take the bit API URL and bit API username and bit API password. Those doesn't exist yet. So that means that we need to create them. In order to create them, we just go back to env local and we do a couple enters and we just create those right there. Remember, it should be bit API URL. Right now it's pointing to my localhost 3000. Production will change this one, of course. Bit API username, the one that we specified in our app, just hello there. So we have those here. Let me just copy this one from here, and before continue, let's put in my example env. So I don't forget that I need to update this file. Okay. Perfect. Now that I save it, because I changed the env variables, I just need to close this and restart the server, just in case, to pick up the real env variables. Okay. So now that we have those from actually there, the only things that I need to execute will be my add function that we need to export it, of course. And this one, the only things that are going to be is just add a new like. And we don't need to return anything. That's why we don't return anything. Just do it, and that's it. And we need just to post the like, and we need to send the like object, right? is what the application the backend is appending. And we come by object ID, and we just pretty much send the update object ID and just give me that particular one that we have. What is going to be our object ID? In this case, it's going to be our movie ID. I call it object because it should be more generic, because I'm thinking or saying like this server is like a API agnostic creation. I don't know, something like that, right? Well, it should be enough for our example. So after we have those, we need to implement those in our card in order to make it work for our user the way they're supposed to be. Of course, API doesn't exist anymore. We just call this like. So we need to do the like post and like get. And we should be fine with those. Okay, now that we have the use like, we just go to the card as I mentioned before. And we just need to import or come by object ID and or add. Right? This is the only two that we're going to implement here. So in order to use them, we need to handle it those through this little heart icon. So whenever we click it, we can actually create some kind of function. We can call the add right away, but let's actually call a specific function, and let's call that one new like. New like doesn't exist yet, but let's actually create that one. And let's put that at the bottom. So the new like function is asynchronous, of course. We need to wait to send that object ID, and like I was saying before, it's going to be from our props, the movie, the ID object, and let's actually put here an ID empty for now. And we need to translate that to a string. Why to a string? Because the movie ID, I believe, is integer for this API, for the movies API. So we're just moving that to be a string. I want to save it like that. And from user ID, we just need to bring the user information and bring the UID. That means that we need to get back, and sorry, not here, here, and let me separate those a little bit. We need to get the authentication for that, and we are actually doing our user from that, exporting the user from authentication. So with that, we should be able to add new likes. Let's test them. So if I click this one time, let's verify to get all the likes from our server. There you go. We have a new object ID with really weird different like, right? And this UID that is pretty much the user ID. So we're able to track a new like. I get them from here. That's pretty neat. Let me actually get another like to Mortal Kombat. And if I check all the likes, that one just gets saved right there. So we're able to create new likes whenever we post those. Now we need to make that number dynamic, right? Right now it's fixed to 3. What I want that number to be, and let me get this ID from here, is to actually go to the count object ID, and let's send that object. And in order to get this number, this is going to be the number that will be reflected in this little down the heart. So in order to have that, let's get back here and let's start working with something. We need to create a function in order to get the likes for a specific object. So we need to import first a reference from view. Let's import the reference, and let's create the likes object to be referenced as a 0. That means that this tree that we have here, we can change it now to be likes. Just with that, all of them should be 0 now. Perfect. Now that we have the main likes object, we can get another function called getLikes. GetLikes, what it's going to be doing is going to do count by object ID, and that will actually, well, I had it here, right? I didn't show you before. So it's going to go to the object ID, and we need to send that movie ID to a string. We're going to extract the data, and if the data exists, the likes value is going to be the data count. Remember that count is the way that we actually reflected over here. So just having that, we should be able, if we send a like to Thunderforce, this should be updated right away. There you go. If we do another like, that should be 2. Now, multiple likes to one who is not preferable, right? More likely when you do one, we can keep this one red, and when you don't like it, you keep it, and this should be removed. Like that should be like the full functionality. I'm not interested to do the full functionality, just an example how to use another source for information. So we see this actually working. But something happened here. If I refresh the page, we have 0 likes by default. If I call another like, it go back to 5 because that's the real like that these movies actually have, or how many times I just click it here. So what we need to do is to get those likes whenever we mount this application, like this card. So whenever that card is get mounted or get printed here in the page, I want it to go to the likes. That means that we need to import something else from view. Let's import unmounted. And whenever we just unmounted, we just do get likes. Let's promote this function from here. That will allow us, if we refresh the page, in this case, we have an issue. Why we have an issue? Oh, we have an extra comment that should not be there. You can see those likes are already printed there. Let me refresh again. Yeah, those likes doesn't get lost because they actually go to the database that make that call. Let me like nobody for now. It's a new one, and if I refresh it, yeah, that stays there. So we have those likes working the way it's supposed to, we will say. Because whenever we mount the card, we actually be able to pull up those. It looks like we have done everything, but let me show you something extra. Let me move to the next page. The movie just get changed, right? But the likes didn't. Below 0 doesn't have likes. Miraculous World doesn't have a like. Those ones should be 0 actually. But as you can see, they stayed as the previous movie that was actually here. Why? Because the card element is already mounted. So when we do a refresh, and we go to, we can actually see the first page to be rendered right there. Right? We go to page 2, those ones is going to be there. Now, if we do a refresh, page 1 it gets redirected. So let's do a quick change in our use movie, and let's make the default page is going to be actually 2. So let's do a refresh, and you see it. Now we have the correct number of likes in there, because when the card is mounted, it's going to get the likes. When the card's information of the card prop change, the likes object doesn't know they need to change. So we need to specify that, and I want to introduce a new element called the watcher here, that's going to look at, okay, when something changed to something that is not related with me directly, I need to react, and we need to say that. So in this case, we need to say that when the prop change. And why the prop? Because what we're doing, whenever we change the new page, we just get the new movies. New movies going to be one on top of the other. That means that the prop element is the one who changed the movie element from the prop. So I need to add a watch. So we say, you know what? Whenever this guy change, I want to execute to get the new likes again, to get the likes. That's it. Let me get back here and let me return this to 1. The way that we had it before. So that's what we need to do. How do we do it? Well, we need to extract movie from props. As you can see here right now, movie is inside the props. I need to extract it to be just like a reference, like this one, right? Or like this one, like likes. How we can actually make that to work? Well, that's pretty simple. We have two reference function that will allow us to do that, and we just do a simple const movie from to reference from the prof. So I will get the prof, I will extract the movie, and it will convert the movie object as a reference. Now my code doesn't need to change because I already called the movie. So this was actually pointing before to the prop movie. Now it's pointing to the reference movie. You can see that my application is still working the way it's supposed to. So here just to extract that particular element. Let me refresh it again. Well, now we have an issue. Let's see what happened here. Reference error to ref is not defined. Oh, it's not from here, I believe. It's actually from core to ref or to refs. I believe it's to refs in plural. Oh yeah. Wait, I don't remember. Let's try that. There you go. Yeah, it was in the view core, but I imported as ref and it should be refs in plural. That was a typo error. So you can see the movies are still loading without issue. So in order to use the watch, I just need to import from view another element called watch. And I will not go deep in what it does. Is whenever something is pretty much telling that, you know what, keep an eye in a specific object. And when that object changes, we're able to catch somehow the old value and the new value and do something about it. Like we want to keep history, something like the undo, for example. You can keep that kind of history with this particular data, right? We are not using that for now, so it's going to be really simple. The only things that we need to do after the prop is watch the movie, and every time this change, get the likes. As simple as that. And that will allow us to have this 0, 0 here, and we go back to page number 1. Those ones get reflected right away. Page number 2, those ones are not. Let me actually put this one here. I don't know if it's a good one, but let's bump this up to 10. Well, 11. If I go to page 1, that second element here is still 0. But the next page, 11. Perfect. We should be able now to keep track of the likes using a custom server API. In order to make it work, of course, we need to deploy both at the end, and we will see that. I don't know if after the next video, or I will create an extra video for deployment. But for now, this is how we need to use a custom API created in Node.js in conjunction with a third-party API from the movies. So I hope that you like it. In the next video, what we're going to be doing now is just implement the comment section, and it's going to be some kind of live chat, keeping the username who actually do the call to be saved right here. Don't worry, it's nothing that we didn't use before. So I hope that you like it. Any question, any doubt, don't hesitate to reach me. Happy coding, everybody.